Oh, cool. I moved the thing before it started going live. Anyways, I just finished listening to the Mysterious Universe podcast. The latest episode is called Fen Hunters. It's a whole thing. Go listen to it. It'll make more sense in context. Let's see if there's less. There we go. Less glare now. So the hosts are two Australian guys named Aaron Wright and Ben Grundy, and every episode, at least the free versions, are about 90 minutes, and they just talk about all this weird shit that they read or look up online, mainly books. Yeah, and then they just banter about it with sound effects and callbacks and running jokes. And it's my favorite podcast. I look forward to it every week when it comes out on Fridays. Which I guess would be... I don't know if it's Thursday there or Friday here. I don't know what the time zone difference is like in Australia. So anyways, last night we were doing Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been by Joyce Carol Oates. So tonight I figured I'd finish that. And then do a little bit more after that. I don't think there's much left of this, but maybe there is, and we'll see what we'll see when the story is over. So, where we left off. He was pressing the transistor radio up against his ear and sat there in a kind of daze, right in the sun. "He's kind of strange," Connie said. "Hey, she says you're kind of strange! Kind of strange!" Arnold Friend cried. He pounded on the car to get Ellie's attention. Ellie turned for the first time, and Connie saw with shock that he wasn't a kid either. He had a fair, hairless face, cheeks reddened slightly as if the veins grew too close to the surface of his skin, the face of a 40-year-old baby. Connie felt a wave of dizziness rise in her at this sight, and she stared at him as if waiting for something to change the shock of the moment, make it all right again. Ellie's lips kept shaping words, mumbling along with the words blasting in his car. "Maybe you two better go away," Connie said faintly. "What? How come?" Arnold Friend cried. "We come out here to take you for a ride. It's Sunday." He had the voice of the man on the radio now. It was the same voice, Connie thought. "Don't you know it's Sunday all day? And honey, no matter who you were with last night, today you're with Arnold Friend, and don't you forget it." "Maybe you better step out here," he said, and this last was in a different voice. It was a little flatter, as if the heat was finally getting to him. "No, I got things to do." "Hey, you two better leave. We ain't leaving until you come with us." "Like hell I am." "Connie, don't fool around with me. I mean, don't fool around," he said, shaking his head. He laughed incredulously. He placed his sunglasses on top of his head, carefully, as if he were indeed wearing a wig, and brought the stems down behind his ears. Connie stared at him, another wave of dizziness and fear rising in her, so that for a moment he wasn't even in focus, but was just a blur standing there against his gold car, and she had the idea that he had driven up the driveway all right, had come from nowhere before that, and belonged to nowhere, and that everything about him, and even about the music that was so familiar to her, was only half that. It was only half real. "My father comes and sees you. He ain't coming. He's at a barbecue." "How do you know that?" "Aunt Tilly's. Right now they're drinking, sitting around," he said vaguely, squinting as if he were staring all the way to town and over to Aunt Tilly's backyard. Then the vision seemed to get clear, and he nodded energetically. "Yeah, sitting around. There's your sister in a blue dress, huh? And high heels, the poor sad bitch. Nothing like you, sweetheart. And your mother's helping some fat woman with the corn. They're cleaning the corn, husking the corn." "What fat woman?" Connie cried. "How do I know what fat woman? I don't know every goddamn fat woman in the world." Arnold Friend laughed. Oh, that's Mrs. Hornsby. Who invited her? Connie said. She felt a little lightheaded. Her breath was coming quickly. She's too fat. I don't like them fat. I like them the way you are, honey, he said, smiling sleepily at her. They stared at each other for a while through the screen door. He said softly, Now, what you gonna do is this. You're gonna come out that door. You're gonna sit up front with me, and Ellie's gonna sit in the back. The hell with Ellie, right? This isn't Ellie's date. You're my date. I'm your lover, honey. What? You're crazy. Yes, I'm your lover. You don't know what that is, but you will, he said. I know that too. I know all about you. But look, it's real nice, and you couldn't ask for nobody better than me or more polite. I always keep my word. I'll tell you how it is. I'm always nice at first, the first time. I'll hold you so tight you won't think you have to try to get away or pretend anything because you'll know you can't. And I'll come inside you where it's all secret, and you'll give in to me, and you'll love me. Oh, man. How did... Pew! Shut up! You're crazy, Connie said. She backed away from the door. She put her hands up against her ears as if she'd heard something terrible, something not meant for her. People don't talk like that. You're crazy, she muttered. Her heart was almost too big now for her chest, and its pumping made sweat break out all over her. She looked out to see Arnold Friend pause and then take a step toward the porch, lurching. He almost fell, but like a clever drunken man, he managed to catch his balance. He wobbled in his high boots and grabbed hold of one of the porch posts. Honey, he said, you still listening? Get the hell out of here. Be nice, honey. Listen, I'm gonna call the police. He wobbled again, and out the side of his mouth came a fast spat curse, an aside not meant for her to hear, but even this Christ sounded forced. And he began to smile again. She watched the smile come, awkward as if he were smiling from inside a mask. His whole face was a mask, she thought wildly, tanned down to his throat but then running out as if he had plastered makeup on his face but had forgotten about his throat. Honey, listen, here's how it is. I always tell the truth, and I promise you this, I ain't coming in that house after you. You better not. I'm going to call the police if you don't... Honey, he said, talking right through her voice. Honey, I am not coming in there, but you are coming out here. You know why? She was panting. The kitchen looked like a place she had never seen before, some room she had run inside, but that wasn't good enough, wasn't going to help her. The kitchen window had never had a curtain after 3 years, and there were dishes in the sink for her to do, probably, and if you ran your hand across the table, you'd probably feel something sticky there. You listening, honey? Hey! Gonna call the police. Soon as you touch that phone, I don't need to keep my promise and come inside. You won't want that. She rushed forward and tried to lock the door. Her fingers were shaking. But why lock it? Arnold Friend said gently, talking right into her face. It's just a screen door. It's just nothing. One of his boots was at a strange angle, as if his foot wasn't in it. It pointed out to the left, bent at the ankle. I mean, anybody can break through a screen door and glass and wood and iron or anything else if he needs to. Anybody at all. Especially Arnold Friend. If the place got lit up with a fire, honey, you'd come running out into my arms, right into my arms, and safe at home, like you knew I was your lover and you'd stop fooling around. I don't mind a nice shy girl, but I don't like no fooling around. Part of those words were spoken with a slight rhythmic lilt, and Connie somehow recognized them, the echo of a song from last year, about a girl rushing into her boyfriend's arms and coming home again. Connie stood barefoot on the linoleum floor, staring at him. What do you want? She whispered. I want you. He said, what? Seen you that night and thought, that's the one. Yes, sir. I never needed to look anymore. But my father's coming back. He's coming to get me. I had to wash my hair first. She spoke in a dry, rapid voice, hardly raising it for him to hear. No, your daddy is not coming, and yes, you had to wash your hair, and you washed it for me. It's nice and shining and all for me. I thank you, sweetheart, he said with a mock bow, but again he almost lost his balance. He had to bend and adjust his boots. Evidently his feet did not go all the way down, The boots must have been stuffed with something so that he would seem taller. Connie stared out at him and behind him at Ellie in the car, who seemed to be looking off towards Connie's right into nothing. This, Ellie said, pulling the words out of the air one after another as if he were just discovering them. You'll want me to pull out the phone? Shut your mouth and keep it shut, Arnold Friend said, his face red from bending over or maybe from embarrassment because Connie had seen his boots. This ain't none of your business. What are you doing? What do you want? Connie said. If I call the police, they'll get you. They'll arrest you. Promise was not to come in unless you touch that phone. I'll keep that promise, he said. He resumed his erect position and tried to force his shoulders back. He sounded like a hero in a movie declaring something important. But he spoke too loudly and it was as if he were speaking to someone behind Connie. I ain't made plans for coming in the house where I don't belong, but just for you to come out to me the way you should. Don't you know who I am? You're crazy, she whispered. She backed away from the door, but did not want to go into another part of the house, as if this would give him permission to come through the door. What are you... crazy, you... Huh? What are you saying, honey? Her eyes darted everywhere in the kitchen. She could not remember what it was, this room. This is how it is, honey. You come out and we'll drive away, have a nice ride. But if you don't come out, we're going to wait till your people come home and then they're all going to get it. You want that telephone pulled out, Ellie said. He held the radio away from his ear and grimaced, as if without the radio the air was too much for him. I told you, shut up, Ellie, Arnold Friend said. You're deaf. Get a hearing aid, right? Fix yourself up. This little girl's no trouble. It's gonna be nice to me, so Ellie, keep to yourself. This ain't your date, right? Don't hem in on me. Don't hog. Don't crush. Don't bird dog. Don't trail me, he said in a rapid, meaningless voice, as if he were running through all the expressions he'd learned, but was no longer sure which one of them was in style, then rushing on to new ones, making them up with his eyes closed. Don't crawl under my fence, don't squeeze in my chipmunk hole, don't sniff my glue, suck my popsicle, keep your own greasy fingers on yourself. He shaded his eyes and peered in at Connie, who was backed against the kitchen table. Don't mind him, honey. He's just a creep. He's dope, right? I'm the boy for you, and like I said, you come out here nice like a lady and give me your hand and nobody else gets hurt. I mean, your nice old bald-headed daddy and your mummy and your sister in her high heels. Because listen, why bring them in this? Leave me alone, Connie whispered. Hey, you know that old woman down the road, the one with the chickens and stuff? You know her? She's dead. Dead? What? You know her? Arnold Friend said. She's dead. Don't you like her? She's dead. She isn't here anymore. Don't you like her? I mean, you got something against her? Some grudge or something? Then his voice dipped as if he were conscious of a rudeness. He touched the sunglasses perched up on top of his head, as if to make sure they were still there. Now, you be a good girl. What are you going to do? Just 2 things, or maybe 3, Arnold Friend said. But I promise it won't last long, and you'll like me the way you get to like people you're close to. You will. It's all over for you here, so come on out. You don't want your people in any trouble, do you? She turned and bumped against a chair or something, hurting her leg, but she ran into the back room and picked up the telephone. Something roared in her ear, a tiny roaring, and she was so sick with fear that she could do nothing but listen to it. The telephone was clammy and very heavy, and her fingers groped down to the dial but were too weak to touch it. Excuse me. She began to scream into the phone, into the roaring. She cried out. She cried for her mother. She felt her breath start jerking back and forth in her lungs as if it were something Arnold Friend was stabbing her with again and again with no tenderness. A noisy, sorrowful wailing rose all about her, and she was locked inside it the way she was locked inside this house. After a while, she could hear again. She was sitting on the floor with her wet back against the wall. Arnold's friend was saying from the door, "That's a good girl. Put the phone back." She kicked the phone away from her. "No, honey, pick it up. Pick it back up. Pick it back right. Put it back right." She picked it up and put it back. The dial tone stopped. "That's a good girl. Now, come outside." She was hollow with what had been fear, but what was now just an emptiness. All that screaming had blasted it out of her. She sat, one leg cramped under her, and deep inside her brain was something like a pinpoint of light that kept going and would not let her relax. She thought, "I'm not going to see my mother again." She thought, "I'm not going to sleep in my bed again." Her bright green blouse was all wet. Arnold's friend said, in a gentle, loud voice that was like a stage voice, "The place where you came from ain't there anymore, and where you had in mind to go is canceled out. This place you are now, inside your daddy's house, is nothing but a cardboard box I can knock down any time. You know that, and always did know it. You hear me?" She thought, "I've got to think. I've got to know what to do. We'll go out to a nice field, out in the country here where it smells so nice and it's sunny," Arnold's friend said. "I'll have my arms tied around you so you won't need to try to get away, and I'll show you what love is like, what it does. The hell with this house. It looks solid, all right," he said. He ran a fingernail down the screen, and the noise did not make Connie shiver as it would have the day before. "Now put your hand on your heart, honey. Feel that? I feel solid too, but we know better. Be nice to me. Be sweet like you can, because what else is there for a girl like you but to be sweet and pretty and give in and get away before her people come back?" She felt her pounding heart. She felt her pounding heart. Her hand seemed to enclose it. She thought for the first time in her life that it was nothing that was hers, that belonged to her, but just a pounding living thing inside this body that wasn't really hers either. "You don't want to get them hurt," Arnold's friend went on. "Now get up, honey. Get up all by yourself." She stood. "Now turn this way. That's right. Come over here to me. Ellie, put that away. Didn't I tell you? You dope. You miserable, creepy dope," Arnold's friend said. His words were not angry, but only part of an incantation. The incantation was kindly. "Now come out through the kitchen to me, honey, and let's see a smile. Try it. You're a brave, sweet little girl." And now they're eating corn and hot dogs cooked to bursting over an outdoor fire, and they don't know one thing about you. You never did. And honey, you're better than them, because not a one of them would have done this for you. Connie felt the linoleum under her feet. It was cool. She brushed her hair back out of her eyes. Arnold's friend let go of the post tentatively and opened his arms for her, his elbows pointing in toward each other and his wrists limp, to show that this was an embarrassed embrace and a little mocking, but he didn't want to make her self-conscious. She put out her hand against the screen. She watched herself push the door slowly open as if she were back safe somewhere in the other doorway, watching this body and this head of long hair moving out into the sunlight where Arnold's friend waited. "My sweet little blue-eyed girl," he said in a half-sung sigh that had nothing to do with her brown eyes, but was taken up just the same by the vast sunlit reaches of the land behind him and on all sides of him, so much land that Connie had never seen before and did not recognize except to know that she was going to. Well, that's the end of the story. Everyone's texting wifey here. Okay. I guess I'll read a little bit. fuck? Very big yawn, I'm sleepy. So, Glamcat mentioned that I read The Road Not Taken, and that, well, shit, I start taking requests from the Space Aid crowd. Well, I've got stuff by Dark Entries and Blush Puppy lined up, but I might not start them right away. What, Ricket? Apparently my puppy is bored. So, let's do 2 quick poems, and that'll be it for tonight's exhibition. Alrighty then. So that's done. Let's do The Road Not Taken. Okay. Here we go then. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Before I keep going, here's my latest tea mug. If you can't tell, it says Pothead. See? Oh, yeah. It'll just say Topehead. But yeah, it says Pothead because it's a pun, see? Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling us, with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So where is it the miles to go? I guess that's a different poem. We'll come back to it another time. William Carlos Williams. I don't need to read his biography. And now, this is Just to Say by William Carlos Williams. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, and so cold. Probably the shortest poem I'll read in this entire series. Well, that's all from me tonight. I guess tomorrow I've been meaning to do it, and I might actually finally get around to it. Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe.